who suffer the most from mass incarceration in New York State. We would be the first state to pass it, which means we would make history. We say we're progressive, let's show the world we're progressive. We have the most mental health in the country, and we don't deal with it. Everything doesn't need a czar. Some things just need legislation. Advocacy and legislation are married to each other. We can't have issues and accidents and don't create legislation behind them. That's egregious to black communities. If it's not for us, by us, it's not for us. And we've got to know that post-traumatic prison disorder, Shawana W76337, is not just about Shawana. But clearly, my prison diary says that I have post-traumatic prison disorder. I walk the length of a jail cell in my own house. And I have night terrors, 18 years out. And guess what? The Department of Corrections' mission statement all over the country says to treat and to heal and restore. They lie on their own promise. And I'm here to make them accountable. Because accountability is key. If you said you're going to make me whole, then make me whole. Because guess what? Some people are innocent of crimes who went to prison. If you don't believe me, look behind me. Yusuf Salam is sitting here. If you don't believe me, Corey Wise is in the audience. And guess what? They're just as impacted as me, who was guilty of all my crimes. Because the reality is, nobody goes to an immoral, abnormal atmosphere and comes out the way they went in. I went in at 17, that person died. This person emerged, I'm still trying to figure out who she is. And I tell people, I tick and I top because I'm trying to get well. Well, guess what? New York State owes the people to get well. You made them mentally ill on Rikers Island. You made them ill in Attica. You made them ill in Danbury. Well, New York State, it's time to pay the bill that you owe and treat people with post-traumatic prison disorder, because treatment is better than jails. And the cost is less. And here's the reality if you don't pass it. You won't get to ride the subway. You won't be safe in your building. You cannot walk down 125th Street, new gentrified or not, because mental health has no borders, no economic standing, and no discrimination. Mental health is an everybody problem. Some of the services that would be provided is trauma-informed therapists. Because guess what? If you haven't been in trauma, you can't therapy me. If you've never been through something, you can't get me out of anything. What I'm asking for is 14 days upon incarceration that people be assessed by trauma-informed therapists, which is vendor care, which doesn't happen. I'm asking that pharmaceuticals be the last line of defense, because in every prison in America there's a med line. When I got there, they told me here's elevator to go to bed and Ritalin to wake up. And I'd never taken medication in my life. And what they don't tell you is it's against prison rules not to take the medication. So I'm asking that we be allowed to be whole without medication. Jabari, I think you can speak to what's in the legislation as well.
So again, State Senator Briscoe, proud to be the vessel for this critical legislation in Albany, and I'll just speak to a few of the other non-traditional forms of trauma-informed counseling and therapy. So the bill also calls for effective counseling services, addiction services such as alcohol and substance abuse disorder treatment services, education and vocational training to help with re-entry, housing information, job placement information, money management assistance. This is all for people who are also on supervised release, in addition to people who are currently incarcerated, things such as yoga, meditation.
It's called humane treatment for humanity. Bureaucracy, because we love profit over people. We are in a state that says they are progressive, but they're enslaved mindsets. They say they want our communities to be whole, but they get paid off of gun violence. So the problem with post-traumatic prison disorder being passed is my legislators being lazy. I don't want to hear about the budget because it costs too much not to treat us. That's the cost. That's the toll. It's called humanity. What's happening is we got legislators that don't even show up to their jobs. So how can you vote on post-traumatic prison disorder when you don't show up for the job that you said you wanted? I can't get it out of committee because I need people to go to work in this next 5 days. Everybody at your post that we voted you into, and I need you to vote it into law, or we'll vote you out. Because what I can tell you is, public housing is a voter block too. And guess what? It's imploding from the inside because it's baby Rikers. So you can't not afford to pass post-traumatic prison disorder, Shawana W76337. My biggest problem is I don't have Meta and Zuckerberg back in my legislation. I don't have a coalition. I write legislation in the projects in my house. So sometimes there's only a band of 3 or 4, but guess what I understood today? Somebody's listening. And if everybody in here goes out and calls the legislator and rallies and hashtag and post, then Albany has to move. Because it should not be that Ayanna Pressley in Congress is moving faster than the state that I live in, that I pay taxes in, that I give my blood, sweat, and tears for in these streets. It's time to move right now. You got 5 days to do it. Thank you, Assemblywoman Inez Dickens, because I'm counting on your support, and I'm definitely counting on you to go to Albany in the next 5 days, because I know you got fire in your bones. Tell them to move this bill.
Every time I hear Shawana speak, I'm oftentimes brought to tears, not just because of the traumas and the experiences that she has lived through, but just the brilliance. I get emotional when I see that level of brilliance. She's so good. She's so good. You said you don't have this and you don't have that, but what you have is a brilliant legislative mind and a brilliant activist mind and a brilliant fire in your belly. And I'm so incredibly proud of you. And thank you so much for turning your trauma into, I apologize, I'm Keisha Sutton James, I'm Deputy Borough President here on behalf of Borough President Mark Levine. But back to Shawana. I'm so proud of you, just as I am so proud of Yusuf and Corey and so many others who have been able to turn your trauma into fire and into action. When you called, obviously I had to stand up to the call and answer the call, I should say. I think about this, just let's speak plainly. Most, I shouldn't say most, many people who find themselves either incarcerated or legitimately or not, whether they're pursuing criminal behavior, in particular if you're engaged in criminal activity, it's because you already have experienced some kind of trauma. You're either living through violence in your home, violence in your community, witnessing abuse in your home, experiencing abuse in your home. Let's be clear, poverty, food insecurity, housing insecurity, racism, all of those experiences are traumatizing us every single day. So it is no surprise when people who have been traumatized every single day by microaggressions or active aggressions or legislative and policy aggressions against them feel traumatized, and then act out on the trauma. So let's be clear, a lot of people are going into our system already having an issue that needs to be, at least one issue that needs to be addressed. And let's be clear, all of us right now, after COVID, having experienced the isolation of COVID, everybody has something that needs to be addressed, even if you don't. Like, you can grow up in the most perfect family, in the most perfect neighborhood, people have stuff to work through. So let's, like, mental health as a whole can't be stigmatized and needs to be normal. Like, mental health services can't be stigmatized and needs to be normalized. But in particular, this segment of our population that is experiencing this trauma, by the time they get to those doors, whether it's at Rikers or somewhere upstate, they have most likely experienced some kind of traumas that have caused them to be in this scenario, unless of course they are there wrongfully. But they may still have trauma even if they're there wrongfully. And then we layer on top of it the experience of incarceration. Search, which is a violation. The search itself is a violation. Isolation. Being separated from family members, loved ones, children. Obviously, the additional violation of being incarcerated. And even violation violence of being incarcerated, experiencing the violence of incarceration, including at the hands of those who are there to protect us and to keep the order in the space. Sometimes they are even are inflicting this violence. Then, of course, we layer on solitary confinement for many. It's the most unthinkable. 80% of people who have experienced solitary confinement are 80% more likely to commit suicide within a year of release. I just let that sit in. 80% more likely. It's insane. And then we take away education services, all the things that make it possible for people to rehabilitate and to find a healthy path in life, to get themselves off of whatever path of criminality that they may have been on. And we then want to expect them to come out and re-enter society whole and able and healed. It's insane. That is the definition of insanity. You have someone who has a mental health challenge, layer on top of it, inflict more challenges, more traumas, and then we want them to act sane. Come on now, let's be serious. That's just crazy. So we need this legislation. And I'm so proud of Shawana for bringing it forward. We need not only obviously services inside, but really critically important is to invest and ensure that people have that we are investing and ensuring that people are able to create discharge plans that include that are first of all tailored to their needs, because not everybody's needs are the same, and in particular not everybody's mental health needs are the same. They're all very different. It's a very specialized as a part of the medical practice. So we also need for them to have completed Medicaid enrollment, have medication sufficient in order to be able to allow for transition, access obviously to all the mental health services. I love the yoga and meditation. There's so much to be said for yoga and meditation without the medication. The therapy, I mean, if we could get acupuncture in there as well, and acupressure, all the things. These are the things, sound therapy, these are the things that people need to just calm the spirit, to calm our nervous systems, because that's what's happening, is our nervous systems are firing and creating behaviors that are erratic. And speaking of erratic, I was just talking to Shawana. I said, Shawana, what happened to your foot? And she says, I was trampled. I said, trampled? She says, yes, I was at an event around mental health for for incarcerated people. That's the kind of erratic behavior that something just happened. I don't know exactly what happened, but she ends up being trampled and is waiting for surgery on her foot, because that is the kind of that is where we are now leaving people to come, the state that we're leaving people to come out into the world with. So access to all of these services, including obviously substance and alcohol abuse disorder treatment, housing information, job information, education, vocational hiring, all the things that people need. These are all the elements that we need to put them, to encourage them and enable them, frankly, to re-enter society in a successful manner. Because what in the hell is the point of sending someone to prison in order to send them back worse? It's worse for them as individuals, it's worse for our society, and as Shawana pointed out rightfully, it not only leads to danger, et cetera, on our streets, but it's a greater expense as well. It costs more to incarcerate, it costs more to process that criminally. So let us invest. And I am looking forward to hearing from everyone, all the rest of the speakers, particularly those who are serving in Albany, because this is what we need. I'm thrilled that we've gotten this far, and the Borough President's Office stands with Shawana Vaughn so that we can get this legislation over the finish line, and we can take care of our own here in New York State. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ruth McDaniels, and I'm the founder of Breaking Chains of Your Mind. And Shawana Vaughn's bill is a piece of legislation that I came across when I was running for city council back in 2020. When I read the bill, I said to her, this is where we're at. That was in 2020. That was just before we were getting ready to go into COVID. Before we were getting ready to go into our own isolation. But what I had realized is we've already been in isolation in this community. In this urban landscape where 1 in 3 households are affected by incarceration, and in many instances it's generational, we deal with it regularly. The breakdown in communication is broken down because they're not able to speak about what they've encountered. Either they're ashamed or they just don't know how. A lot of times we hear these young men giving their jail exploits on the corner. Yeah, and I did this, and when I was in lockup, I did that. That's a part of them just trying to cope with the trauma and the impact of the trauma. Things that I get enraged when I hear them saying it, because it almost like glorifies their encounter. But I had to realize it's not really a glory. It's just a coping mechanism. And when we talk about the Shawana bill, we have to know that we have to have coping mechanisms in place. And what does that look like in the real scheme of things? Helping our young people whose parents might have been incarcerated, because they're the fallout. They're the fallout. It's demonstrated in the school system. Now, I'm a parent of a returning citizen, and that's a person who's been incarcerated, for people who don't know the verbiage. That individual has a son. How do those children interact with that? These conversations aren't had. Incarceration trauma is impacting on many levels. We can no longer sit back and say it's all right, because one thing we know as a community of color, that black on black and brown crime is only perpetuated by white legislation. Because white legislation has a higher value. So I can't stand up here and try to glorify the system and act as though we don't understand. We got people in office, black and brown people in office, who come from these communities, supposedly, who say they understand. I need for them to understand, and stand, and do. Do what we need. Push the legislation. Put your feet in the fire. Make a change for your people to self-heal, for us to get ourselves together. Because economic pressure, we know poverty breeds what? Mental illness. You know how I know? Let your check be messed up. Let your check be messed up. Let it be messed up 2 months in a row. You got a problem. You got a mental health problem if it keeps going on. Those issues are real. Those issues lead us to do things that compromise our freedom, that compromise our judgment, that put us in positions where we have to help ourselves. The streets are filthy. It affects our mental health. People coming from incarceration are coming out into confusion, into disenfranchisement, into filth, into rat-infested streets, and they want us to make us believe it's all right. It's not all right. And until we get legislation here to help them guide and navigate this terrain, we're a part of the problem. I ask you to call your friends and your family members and all your legislators from whatever boroughs and let them know this is a necessary, mandatory legislation. Please put Shawana Vaughn's legislation into motion today. We have 5 days. Thank you.
Hello, family. Hello. Do I have to introduce myself? I'm Inez E. Dickens, and I am the New York State Assembly person who represents this district that we're in of Central Harlem. But we've heard a lot about the issues, the problems about mental health, and about those that are returning from being incarcerated and the recidivism rate. But I want, Shawana, can you stand for just a minute? I want you to come up. This woman right here, before it was sexy to talk about mental health. See, now it's sexy, so everybody's talking about it. But see, before it was sexy, she was talking about it. Now, I'm gonna tell you one other thing that makes this woman different from everybody else that's talking about it. Shawana and I were at odds last year politically. But Shawana came to me as woman to woman and said, above all of the politics, let us get together to highlight mental health issues. And in the middle of the race, nobody could understand it, but in the middle of the race, she and I together sponsored a mental health forum and program on the streets of Harlem. So I want you to give it up for her because she thinks outside the box. Because for her, the fight is not about politics. It's about the issue that's impacting upon our people. So I give her credit because most people think politically, and they will get up and talk about, issues and then bring in about their candidate. She didn't do that. That's not what she did. She said it's about the people. Yes. So recognize that with Shawana, give her the accolades, and understand she's above all of that.
And guess what? To be clear, somebody paved the way for me, right? And I honor my elders. And Inez, I honor you because you've been here. And I understand that leaders create leaders, right? Because if we don't, it'll be gentrified new leadership. And all that I ask of my elders is that you make space for young people and you create leaders out of us. Because if you don't create leaders out of us, we won't happen and we won't have people. And so I'm so glad that Monday morning she gets to go back to work and she gets to tell her assembly to pass post-traumatic prison disorder because Harlem is in need. Because New York State is in need. So I thank you, Assembly, for being on your post.
And we have to have legislation. But you know what? A bill that passes that says we need additional services means it's got to be in the budget. Don't get things twisted, because putting it in legislation and passing it means nothing without money to support it. Anything you want, what do you got to do? You got to pay for it, right? Same thing with the services. Now, Keisha talked about the support of the Borough President's Office, and we need that because New York City, as well as New York State, has gutted mental health programs, totally gutted them, and took funding away from them, and took it down to nothing. So, Keisha, what we want to hear from you is not to tell us the issues, but to give us the commitment of the dollars that your office will fight for, to see that money is put in the New York City budget. Yes. To see to it that the mental programs that you articulate about is really put into fruition and not just talk. So I just want to ask you to do that. Community, ask Keisha to do that. Tell her that's what you want. Don't holler at her. Just talk to her and let her know what's needed. Now, we're not finished with the budget in the state, and the assembly is going to resume, and we're going to be really in session until Saturday morning, we were told. I'm going to try to run up and down the highway because we've got an event right here that Rev is hosting to bring to you the 3 candidates that are running for the city council, and that's me, and that's Yusef, and that's Al Taylor. I don't usually call my opponents names, but I'm part of the community, so I'm honest with my community. I don't lie. That's right. But the truth of the matter is I am going to be in Albany fighting. And I want to tell you one other thing. We need volunteers. Shawana needs volunteers because she can create and think and write the legislation, but she needs the help of her community, her family, to lift her up and give her the strength that she really needs. And in fact, all of your electeds need that. And the truth of the matter is, I want to mention Corey Wise. I don't know if he's still here, but my nephew has a citywide program. He's in charge of 44 sites in 5 boroughs. And Corey and he and Derek Perkinson have gotten together, and my nephew Paul, my sister's here, her son, brought Corey in to talk to the youth between the ages of 14 and 24, to talk to them about not going to jail, about not returning to jail, about how to stay out of jail, and giving them his experience. So that's what we're talking about. Not just stand before you and tell about what your experience is, but to share it and get involved with the community, get involved with the programs, and get involved with those people that are actually doing the work. So I want to give it up for Corey Wise because I'm grateful to him. I'm grateful to him for doing that. Because without him, there would have been just people just talking. And you know, young people don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear somebody getting up and talking about I'm this and I'm that and they want to know what you've been through. And Corey goes and meets with those kids, and my nephew sets up for him to speak to them, and almost every week Corey says that my nephew's working him to death. But that's all right. He's proud to do it, and he's happy to do it. But you know what? He's volunteering and doing it. So that's what we're talking about, actually working and not talking. We're talking about action and not sitting down and articulating about what you could do, what you want to do, but what is he doing today, now, to protect our youth and defend our community against the invasion of racism that's perpetrating all of us today. That's right. So I want to thank him for that. And as we talk about the budget, I've got a bill that I'm priming about elder parole. Yes. And I've been going around speaking on behalf of that bill because I need the support. I also have a bill that I'm co-priming that talks about the young women that are pregnant, that are incarcerated, that need to be separated from the general population because there's health issues that come up and arise when you're pregnant. And those women need to be protected. So I ask for your support. And Sunday I'm having a rally at 2 o'clock at Lincoln facility on 110th Street to talk about the oversaturation that's hitting our community and bringing in, I'm not racist, black people have been the most open-armed people in the world. In the world. But yet they keep dumping on Harlem. And we have a rally that we're going to have at 2 o'clock at Lincoln on 110th that says that we want this no more. Stop dumping on Harlem. Stop dumping on Harlem. Stop dumping on Harlem. We won't stand for it anymore. Thank you. God bless you. And Harlem, stay strong. Amen.
Peace and blessings, family.
Peace and blessings, my brother.
Y'all know why I'm here. I'm here because I was run over by the spike wheels of justice. I'm here because I'm a black man in Harlem. I'm here because the color of my skin was used to judge the content of my character. They said to me that I was the scum of the earth. They told me that I wasn't supposed to be born. They told my mother that she also should be put to death for raising such an animal. This is what we are talking about. We're talking about how systemically they will allow you to occupy jail cells when they know that it costs upwards of $200,000 to house young people in prison. They want you to occupy jail cells when they know that it costs upwards of $50,000 to house adults in prison. My prison number was 95A1113. And you know, when you go to prison, especially for a crime you didn't commit, you wake up to the American nightmare when all you wanted was the American dream. I imagine myself just like a Khalif Browder who was languishing in a place called Rikers Island. For years, they denied him from even being able to make bail because they didn't have the bail reform laws yet. And they kept saying to him, well, why don't you just cop out? You've been in here for a year. We can say time served. Or you can just have a little bit more time left. But we all know that when you cop out to a crime you didn't commit, now you have other circumstances that's associated with that. I mentioned my prison number because 95A1113 was the year, the time, and the position in 1995 that I went to the adult facility.
Make it plain, my brother.
In 1995, I turned 21. I aged out of the youth facility and was entered into the adult facility. And I gotta tell you, they did me wrong, y'all. You know how they did me wrong? Let me tell you how foul they was when they did this. They cut my flat top off. And it wasn't like a clean cut. They left me with what looked like the mange. So I'm coming into a place as a brand new person, looking crazy. I came in, my birthday is February 27th. I came in at the first half of the year, which is the 8th. But the reason why I mention my birthday is because I came in on my birthday.
Wow.
That means that from January 1st to February 27th, I was the 1,113th person to enter the door. And it was February. I look around at the prison industrial complex and it tells a story. It tells a story that slavery is alive and sick. And when you look at the 13th Amendment, when I first read that, I read that in prison. I thought I was reading it there. Couldn't believe it. Neither slavery nor servitude shall exist within the United States or any other place within its jurisdiction, except as the punishment for crime. Now that right there is like, what? But that's not the crux of the matter. The crux of the matter is Section 2. Congress shall have the power to enforce this article through appropriate legislation. And so when we look at what's at stake, we need laws that give us an opportunity to fight on a level playing field. But even if they don't give us those laws, we got something that they cannot contend with. There's something called a memory in Sankofa. And I want to say this plain. I want to tell us as a people that we have the ultimate opportunity within our DNA, the deoxyribonucleic acid flowing through our veins, to completely reject any definition that the system places on us to accept. Because we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. We are not our ancestors' wildest nightmares. And all we have to do to stand up in the face of fear is to become courageous. Because courage is not the absence of fear, but it's acknowledgement and standing in spite of it all. to do what's necessary. What we are called to do, the elders and the young people, we are called to lift mountains. Let's lift mountains.
That's my leg, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can we get a group shot of everybody over by the podium? Get a group shot. Move forward. Excellent. Get rid of the microphone.
Don't drop the mic on us. You don't need you to drop the mic.
Okay, everybody. Look up. Okay, look this way, please. This way in the center.
Stay there for me. Just look in this direction for me. 3, 2,
Thank you.
3, 2. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.